Today, I'm chatting with Lettie a professional organizer based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She started her business as a pro organizer way back in 2006 and is here to share tons of knowledge with us about the industry as a whole, being a professional organizer for over 16 years. Welcome to the show, Lettie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on, Melissa. I'm super excited to talk about everything organizing, one of my favorite topics.
Yes, and we have been connected on Instagram for, I want to say, almost like 2 years now, or a year, at least a year. And I've just loved to see, what you're putting out. We're going to get into a little bit about your website and your digital products and printables here in a minute too. But before that, tell us about yourself and what called you to get into this field.
Okay, so I've always liked organizing, and I used to help friends like move, or they'd be like, oh, this closet is really bugging me. And then I would help them clean out their closet. And they would say things like, you should do this as a business. You should do this. And I was like, organizing as a business, And who knew? Now it's like this multi-billion-dollar industry. And so then I had my son, and he was 3 at the time. And my husband moved us back to our hometown for his work. And so as a stay-at-home mom, I was just kind of looking for some outlets. So I decided to start organizing. And I literally just reached out to friends and family and said, hey, this is what I'm doing if anybody needs anything. And that's how I started.
And that's the best way, right? Because it's tapping into your own network that you've already built. Thankfully, you moved back to a town that you already knew, right? You already had connections there and old school friends and things like that. And those, friends and family in my experience have been the best kind of cheerleaders, the best referral partners, the best promoters. They're always sharing stuff on Facebook or Instagram, right? So I love that that's, how it all kind of happened. I feel like that's the story for most organizers where, we were always good at this as little girls. And then we're like, wait, I guess we should turn this into a business, right?
Yeah.
So here you are, so many years later. I want to ask you, for those of you listening, you might notice that, or watching on video. So Lettie actually is a little bit hard of hearing. And so I want to know, Lettie, has that been a challenge for you at all in growing your business? I mean, I know you've been killing it for so long, so I imagine not, but I just wanted to ask.
Right. It's sometimes like I forget that, I am hard of hearing until I get in a situation where I'm struggling, because I've been wearing hearing aids since I was 2 years old. And so the accent that people will catch up on that I have is just because I'm not hearing things quite right. And so then that's how, like, where that accent comes from. But anyways, as far as my business, really the most challenging thing is just being bold enough to let my clients know if I'm struggling to hear them, that I am hearing impaired and that am having trouble hearing them and that I read lips. But I've never had anybody be upset about that or be frustrated. In fact, everyone has been super understanding and, almost like catering to me in some senses. So.
Yes. And just before we jumped on, we were chatting about, the importance of closed captioning in this digital age and all of these YouTube videos that we watch and the podcasts that we see, digitally now and on stories on Instagram when we go live or when we do stories. It's so important to use that caption button to our advantage, right? Because there are folks that are hearing impaired, and it's so crucial for people to be able to obtain the same knowledge as everybody else, right? So friendly reminder for those of you listening, use your closed captioning on all of the tools that you're using. That being said, on that kind of digital note, I checked out your website before we jumped on today, organizedbylettie.com. You have some really amazing digital products that are available on your website. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your printables, like your chore cards, your photo organizing bundle, your easy emergency binder? Tell us kind of where this came from, because these are really cool.
Okay, thank you. It came out of COVID, as a lot of new things have over the past couple of years. I was like, oh my goodness, COVID is really affecting my business. What can I do to pivot? So one of the things I started doing right away was obviously doing virtual organizing, which I really did not think virtual organizing would work. But then I had a client that was like, I will be your guinea pig, I will do it. And we ended up getting an entire closet done in an hour. And she was super thrilled with the process and the, results. And then I decided, okay, well, I would like to share with some of my clients, like how I have an emergency binder that I have, because I'm the person that takes care of all the papers and all the bills and everything in my house. And so, like, I've always thought, well, if something happens to me, they're not going to know how to access the bank account, like all my business accounts and all of that kind of stuff. So that's where that was born out of. And then also, like, I have a pretty easy housekeeping system that I use to stay on top of everything. And it was something that I used even while I was working full time. So that's where that came from. And those are checklists that get sent and they print them and put them in a binder themselves with instructions on how to utilize them. And then I also felt like, okay, I really want to create some master classes where they feel like there's an organizer right there organizing with them and kind of guiding them through the process. And so I have like a closet clean out masterclass. I have a paper management masterclass and a couple of other ones. And I even have a freebie one on there so that people can try it and see if they like it. And then maybe it will bring them back to want to purchase, some of the other ones. And so, anyways, it's like one of my clients did it and messaged me and she was like, you need to make more of these. This is awesome. I feel like you're right there organizing with me. And so I think it's been like a good thing. I haven't sold like millions of dollars worth of them, but I have been selling them over time and they've increased in, as I've increased my engagement on social media accounts, more people are seeing them and purchasing them.
That is so awesome. It's like the art of the pivot, right? COVID hits, nobody's wanting people in their homes. What can I do? Well, hey, I've already been running my own family this way, so why not offer this to the general public? I love that. Also, speaking of COVID, obviously at the time of this recording, in-person events are back, big trade shows, conferences, networking events, charity galas, all of these events are back. So are you planning on doing any grassroots marketing at events like that?
Yes, I have 2 events coming up. One is a conference at our church for women, and they asked if I would donate a gift certificate. And of course I said yes. And then they said, we'd love for you to be able to set up a table in the lobby so that you can meet and talk with people. And so at that event, I will be having a QR code with my website that will lead them into a pop-up that pops up for getting on my email list. And then after that goes away, then they'll be right into my shop and they can look at all my digital stuff and purchase right there if they want to, or they can think about it and purchase later at home. And there's also another event that I'm going to be doing in October for breast cancer awareness. And so I'm super excited about that as well. And all of anything that I sell at that event, 10% will go back to that Breast Cancer Foundation.
So cool. So cool. This is such a good idea for those of you listening that might be feeling like business is slowing down. We're in the last kind of tail end of 2022 at the time of this recording. And I think a lot of us forget, hey, we have to get ourselves in front of people, right? Go where the people are. If they're at these, women's church conferences, or if they're at big events through, like Lettie said, breast cancer awareness foundations for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So this is your friendly reminder, if you're listening, to really get out into those local communities, build your local referral network, and really get yourself visible in front of other people by having even just a booth or a QR code, or just going to the event, passing out business cards. We can't all run our businesses like little hermits in our houses and hide away from the world, right? We have to be visible out in our local communities so people can begin to book us. Yeah, so awesome work. Obviously, I'm sure this isn't your first rodeo, Lettie, having done this since 2006. So kudos to you for knowing the secret sauce, right? Getting them on that email list, getting them right into your shop. Super great tips there. What are kind of some of your favorite areas of a home to work on as a pro organizer?
So my favorite things to work on is kitchens, pantries, bathrooms, surprisingly enough, but I just love getting in those little areas and like making them work better. And I love craft rooms and also getting paper organized and helping people realize that they don't need to keep all of that paper, like there's better ways to do it. So those are probably my favorite.
Yeah, and that's huge. I think, kitchens, pantries, bathrooms were always some of my favorite too, just because they're in most cases less emotional, right? You're not going through the garage with all the deep ancestral inherited junk, you're not going through the closet where maybe it's someone that's like, oh, I've gained so much weight and I don't fit into that or whatever, these are the areas that bring up so much emotion. So I love those areas too. And then on the paper management side, that's great to hear because I often don't talk to a whole lot of organizers that like that side of things. And it is so crucial. We're inundated with so much mail, so many, bills and files and tax documents. So it sounds like you are pretty systematized in your work, right? With all of your digital products. I imagine you also offer like paper management systems for your clients in that regard too.
Yes. Yes. And one of my master classes is a paper management class. And I go through the step by step. This is how you deal with mail. This is a way to set up in an easy office tickler file, I guess is what you would call it, where you have these things on your desk that you access all the time. And then this is what you file, and this is what you put in long-term files. And these are things that you can get rid of. So
yeah. And for us as organizers, it's like, I'm sure that's how we all just kind of naturally run our businesses, right? Having an LLC, you end up with all of this stuff and the business license and all the filings and everything. And then home management, I now have like a mortgage, but then I also have all the like home insurance and then work that's been done on the house that I have to save for taxes, all of that stuff. I think naturally we kind of know like, okay, let's put it in a file folio, we're like naturally organized, but most people never learned that, right? They never learned those like adult skills. So that's super cool. I love that. What is maybe some advice that you have for new pro organizers that are maybe just started their business, maybe thinking about starting their business? I know you've been at this for an awesome amount of years since 2006. So if you had any advice for newbies, what would you say?
Yeah, so I, have been doing this since 2006, but like I was telling Melissa earlier when we were chatting before this podcast, I felt like it was more of a hobby way back in the beginning. And so I don't really feel like I've been treating this as a business until maybe like the last 5 years. And so I've really like done a lot more things that are more business minded. And so my advice for people starting out is don't be afraid to change things. So just because you've quoted these prices for 6 months, that doesn't mean like if you're feeling like, wow, I think I'm worth more than that now, and like with inflation and stuff, I can start charging more, then do it. And it's okay to change it right now in the beginning of fall. You don't have to wait till January. And then the other thing is, don't be afraid to spend some money on your business. I think one of the great things about organizing, being a professional organizer, is you don't have to spend any money. There really isn't any overhead. You basically just need a client, you go to their house and you help them get organized. It costs you the gas money to get there. And so that's what's so great about being a professional organizer. But at some point, if you want your business to grow, you have to be willing to say, okay, what am I willing to spend or work on or grow in to make my business go to the next level?
I totally full-heartedly agree with you, Lettie, because I was so similar. I started technically, in 2011, but really, really legitimized everything in 2018. So kind of a similar-ish timeline to you. And I think it takes like our nervous systems almost some time to be like, wait, this is actually working. I'm actually really good at this. We gain our like training wheels, right? We gain that confidence and that credibility. And that is so true that, being a mobile home service business, We don't have to have an office space. We don't have to have all of these things that traditional like brick and mortar or product businesses have to keep, inventory on hand and this and that and the other. We are just able to get booked and then go make money. It's kind of like pulling money out of thin air in a way. But that being said, it is so important to invest in things like, once you get there, a really good website, a really good Google local search presence. If you ever work with like an SEO type company, once you reach a certain level, a coach, a mentor, a mastermind, different conferences, right? The power of networking with other people in the industry. So that is so true. Like, invest in your business. Don't be afraid to spend money where and when you can. Once you kind of get those training wheels off. Love it.
And you're going to make mistakes. And it's okay. Like, I know that there was things that I decided to spend money on and I was like, wait, well, that was not what I needed to be spending my money on. Okay, stop that, move on, do something else, and not give yourself a hard time about it.
That's so true. It's like a little bit of trial and error at the beginning. I'll have folks that'll come into the Pro Organizer Bootcamp Mastermind and they're like in different markets, right? And so there's not a science to this of what works in your area might not work in Lettie's area, might not work in my area, right? When I just moved my business completely from San Diego, California to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, I was using much different marketing tactics in Southern California than I was out here in the Midwest / the South, right? So, I wish that there was like a prescription where we could say, go do these 5 things and you are going to be a successful organizer. But like Lettie said, it's a little bit of try, put your lab coat on, put your little science goggles on and go make the
if you're talking to me, you froze up. Oh, you're back.
Oh, I froze. Uh-oh. It's saying my internet is unstable. Well, anyway, that was awesome advice. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Lettie. Where can our audience find you?
All right, so the best place to get a hold of me or find out more about what I'm doing is at my website, which is organizedbylettie.com. And you can check that out. And then I also have a YouTube channel, which is Organized by Lettie. And I would love it if you want to find me and follow me on IG or Facebook, which again is also Organized by Lettie. So hopefully I'll see you guys over there.
Yes, I love the consistency. She's not hard to find. Lettie is Lettie, and I will drop all of that into the show notes below. Thank you again, Lettie, for your time today. This has been awesome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on here. I had a blast.